And welcome to the podcast, episode 6, where today we're going to be discussing misinformation. Misinformation is one of those things where the people that use it, which I'll go into more detail later, the people that use it, they always use it to their advantage and their advantage only. Misinformation is it is a persuasion in itself. Misinformation persuades people to use it to their advantage. So obviously the main issues with persuasion is that, well, the person, misinformation, the obvious main issues with misinformation is that the people that have been victim to it, well, they've lost something. They may think they have gained something, but they've actually lost something because they have been misinformed to think that they have gained something, but like I said, they've actually lost something. So let's say there is a new furniture company, right? And they say, well, we're better than this other furniture company, even though they're not. So that is misinformation. So the reason that they do this is so they are able to have a broader user base, right? Because and so they get money, and even if they aren't necessarily better than this other furniture company, and they say that they are, well, they've gained, and the people who have been misinformed have lost. Now, obviously, there may be a point where this certain furniture company that isn't better than the other one, there may be a point where the people who have been misinformed realize, oh, I was misinformed. I'm going to see if I can refund this table, and then they boycott the company. That it's kind of one of those things where it's one and done, right? It's not going to happen again, maybe. Now there may be people that say, oh, this furniture company actually is better than this other company, but that just kind of goes into a completely different subject called opinions. Misinformation is also kind of one of those things where it kind of backlashes or like ricochets back at you, because you misinformed people and then they realize that they've been misinformed. Well, they are going to notice, right? And then, well, you've lost that battle. So briefly, I want to go into who uses it. And the few second answer is absolutely everyone. Everyone uses it. And I mean everyone. Because misinformation is one of those things where, again, as I said a few minutes ago, we are all persuaded into using misinformation to our advantage. And there will be a time where we all use it. I've used it. You've used it. Everyone's used it. Now, obviously, and hopefully, there will be a time in your life where you say, oh, that was a dumb idea and it didn't actually work, and then you just move on. Of course, there may be times where misinformation works and, you actually misinform yourself, because there may be a time where that furniture company actually is better completely than the other furniture company that they said they were better than, but they thought they actually weren't. Its buyer base may actually realize that, oh, this furniture company actually is better than this other furniture company. And then the obvious reason why we use it is because we benefit from it occasionally, most of the time. Because, we said that we're better than this other thing, even though we're not. And you realized I've learned from it. I mean, when did I ever say that I was better than the Joe Rogan podcast? Misinformation is especially popular in our current time right now. And I can't actually say when it's used, otherwise my channel will be destroyed by the YouTube gods. So I can't say. I'm not. I literally cannot say. Otherwise, I'll have to move to Rumble. Um, but I'd like to keep my channel intact for now. Misinformation is also used in probably the dumbest kind of ways. And what I mean by that is, say people on Twitter or just any kind of social media, they say, "Oh, look at me. I had enough money to buy a plane ticket and spent it to go to Ireland." And, they'll show a picture of themselves supposedly in Dublin, right? Even though that's actually just a photoshopped image of them in Dublin. So again, like misinformation is used a lot of the time in the dumbest kind of ways, and that's an example of it. And probably the people to use misinformation most of the time are extremely well-known newspaper companies such as the Enquirer, right? They're always, saying, "Oh, look at us! We have found a UFO," and then they just show a picture of the sky with a black triangle in the sky. It's just, well, what it's like. How is that an alien? I mean, you've obviously just taken a picture of the sky and then just put a triangle in the sky, or you've just photoshopped an image of a triangle into the sky, and then millions of people go berserk because they've all believed it, and because the Enquirer is a trusted magazine, otherwise they wouldn't be so big. But the thing is, they use misinformation so much, that's why they're so big. And that doesn't go without saying, it's not just the Enquirer that uses it, it is New York Times, Los Angeles Times. Can't think of any other newspapers. But they all use it, and they use it because they want to, these companies want to create an uprising, or these newspaper companies want to create an uprising. I understand the New York Times once said, "Oh, God's dead," even though we had no real solid proof that he was. And guess what? It created a massive uprising, a huge uprising. Sometimes misinformation is accidental, but most of the time it's uh, with purpose. Another thing I can say without getting in trouble is the misinformation of saying, "We're not tracking your location." And a perfect example of that is Apple, and I mean the company that makes iPhones. They've always said, "Oh, we're not tracking your location. We can only do that unless you let us." Yet, you wouldn't tell me it's 15 minutes away from home if you weren't tracking my location. Every time, someone starts a car, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's 15 minutes from home from here. Just saying. We're not tracking your location or anything. Just saying it's 15 minutes from home." How do you know? How do you know where my home is? How do you know? I didn't ask you to know where my home is. And of course, it's not just Apple. I mean, I use a Windows computer, and it's constantly telling me, "Oh yeah, by the way, it's around 10 hours to Huntsville." Just saying. By the way, I'm not tracking your location or anything. It's just you might want to go there. I didn't even ask. Like I never asked to go to Huntsville. It's just telling me that from my current location. Not saying it's actually 10 hours to Huntsville, but it's just putting it in retrospect. Or not retrospect, just clarification. Or not clarification, but just putting it into a scenario. So briefly, I just looked up what percentage of information is fake, and I was kind of surprised, but also at the same time, I was like, yeah, I can understand that. So the percentage of misinformation apparently told, 62% of it is false. And the Central Statistic Office said that. Never heard of them. But apparently 62% of information spread is not real. Understandably, too. Because it's so common. It's just like, yeah, yeah, it's just, that's fake. It happens so much these days that you can immediately tell. You can just kind of migrate into like what is and isn't fake. It happens so much. An example of misinformation is a spam call. You know, you pick up the phone and, hello, we would like to tell you that that was accidentally racist. Anyway, you know, they say, oh, you know, your car's your car has an extended warranty, and we just like to tell you that. And well, and then they go into your bank and then they steal all your money, and that's beneficial for them. The opposite of beneficial for you, because well, you've just lost maybe thousands, maybe hundreds of thousands of dollars. So the obvious reason why misinformation is used at all today is because it sometimes works. And that's an issue. That's a massive issue because it works sometimes, not all of the time, and if anything, not a lot of the time. But it sometimes works, and people are willing to take that gamble, and sometimes they're lucky, and then they make millions of dollars just because they misinformed a lot of people. So I kind of want to move away from misinformation and move into persuasion. Persuasion is actually pretty much the same as misinformation, but it's a bit different. Persuasion is when you say something to try to make a person or people, um, let's say you spread a belief out into the world. You make a big speech, and you try to make people follow along with your new belief. Like people like Al Gore, he says, "Oh, we need to move to electric cars because Earth is dying." Then people like Alex Jones, who's like, "Oh, the government's bad, and you're being tricked into all of this." And then you have all those people like that. Excuse my horrible Alex Jones impression. Anyway, someone's calling me. Uh, Potential spam. Never heard of him. Anyways, with that, I think it is time for me to answer this phone call. Have a good day, and don't be scammed.